We have Gus Viegas from Lessmore, and our talk will be building growth teams around UA algorithms.
Hi. So, I'm here today to hopefully provide you guys some value, even if you are game developers or marketeers or studio heads. So, the reason I know this is because I asked you guys first before I had the talk even. So, I asked on LinkedIn various different talks that I could have for you guys today. And it was interesting because each and every answer came from a different subset of people. So I would like to know, just for a quick second, do we have any marketing folks in the house? Raise your hand, please. Cheers, okay. And what about game developers? Okay, so I see it's going to be more of a marketing-centric one. Good, no problem. I got you covered because I had all of you covered regardless. I prepared something that I think will provide you value. Stick with me. And the way I know it is, well, here's the mandatory slide about my past experience. Doesn't matter. I've been doing this for a few years. What I really want to talk to you guys about is a case study of my last year. What's been going on, it's this amazing growth that we had. You're now looking at an X-ray of game install chart. This is a public information. You can find it on your marketing insights tools. And it goes from when me and my team joined over here before and up to now where we're having roughly like 1 million downloads a week. Could even be more. It starts off with, the early installs, the first million spend. We come in and we already see the downwards trend, Post-release, the things are already winding back down. It's standard that they were already advertising on the 1 or 2 main networks, but we knew we had to diversify. And so the first thing we do is like experiment, and we went, 12 different networks, signed the contracts in like a month, and go haywire, really try to get this going and figure out how do each of the algorithms react to our game, right? And well, now we have successfully, established a foothold, at the top of the charts where we can keep that, stable monthly install, stable monthly spend. We had several number ones in like US simulation and Germany simulation and a bunch of other Western geos. So, and I don't even need to, talk much about it because you can literally Google online case studies from multiple different networks, some of you guys in the house. Yeah. So this is like the generic, answer of what's the secret sauce to this? Is, just make a good game, get the right networks, model that data, get the right content, and spam rocket emojis on Slack, right? But, I mean, I wouldn't do you guys dirty like that and just say, hey, here's the generic advice, and there you go. I think one of the things that people don't ask so well is what does make a good game in the eyes of like an algorithm? What does make a good game in the eyes of a specific network, and which networks should you aim for any specific game? Because here's the reality. Not every game works on every network, which means the first thing you have to do is figure out which is the right network for which game. So let's talk. Please bear with me as you eat the vegetables, which is the theory, while then we go to the dessert, which is the actual secret sauce. I have to explain some things to get your minds in the same mindset that I got when I figured this out. So when we look at our players, we think, okay, so they watch an ad, they reach the store, they open the app, finish the tutorial, they kind of get the game, and then they eventually retain, eventually monetize. So that's how we think about the user, right? But like, how do the algorithms see this? And before I even get there, how does our analytics see this? Like, what events do they see? They don't see exactly the same thing. They don't interpret it in the exact same way. What they see is there's impressions and clicks and installs and app opens. By the way, install an app open, like a lot of game developers underestimate that there is a difference between install and app open. Some people install a game and don't open, so keep in mind that. So this is how internally we see the data. But then, when you're talking about ad networks, you're talking about different events. They're not exactly the same. There's like tiny nuances here that actually do matter. So first of all, they know more information about the impressions. They know that it's not just, your impression showed at a certain CPM. They know the CPMs of, all the other players in the market. And when they go for the click, they don't just measure the click. Let's think about Facebook, for instance. They might know that when the click took place, how the click took place, did they have some likes, did they view the video, etc. And these metrics, these data points, train the algorithms as well. And then, I was talking earlier about the install and the app open being different. Well, in the eyes of a network, it's even more different because you only have the MMP callback. Your attribution providers call back once they fire the game and load the attribution SDK, which means that in some cases, the network has less visibility than you, and you need to take care of this. And then you think about what events are you sending to the network. You might not send the finish tutorial event or the level up event or a session time event. You might not, right? You might just be have focused on sending revenue events, right? So think about it for 1 second. If you are a network and you're seeing, hey, the user popped up out of existence and 5 days later they did a purchase, what happened in between, right? Like the networks might not know. So on the one hand, I'm saying networks don't know that much. But the reality is they know more than you think. They also know about past behaviors in past games, right? And this is all nice and interesting. You get to see, this is something that maybe game developers don't think about all the time, but there's also the past behavior of a specific user. Sure, with privacy, it's getting a bit broken, and that's one of the reasons why the efficiency is going down on the iOS side. But there is one part of the extra expanded data that you can control, which is also the company's data. You need to think about all these things when you're thinking about an algorithm. You need to think that how many apps have you released in this network? What apps were they? What kind of apps were they? What signals were they sending? Because that history that you're sending, all of it trains these algorithms. And that's where I want to focus. I want to focus on how do these algorithms learn about us, about the games, about the products that we're sending and the marketing signals that we're sending. So we make a bunch of content, it converts into data points, and then it converts into signals. They're actually interpreted in a specific way to create the learnings for a specific campaign. So this is us starting to now hone in into what I really want to talk about. So your team, your growth team, I'm talking about the UA managers, the data engineers, the campaign community managers, and marketing artists, etc. They're all creating this content. The content then goes to the network and creates data which sends certain signals. So again, think about it like this. You might be thinking, oh, this ad should be blue, should be red, should be like this or that. But then the network might interpret something like how much text does it have in the ad. And they actually read these signals, signals that might not be obvious at once because they might not show up on your dashboard. But always keep in mind there's more data behind the scenes. And all that sends for the algorithm. So in other words, you have a team, it produces content, sends data, use signals, all that goes to the learning. But then there's one more vector to all of this, which is the algorithm's learning depends on which algorithm you pick, right? And then you go and think, oh, okay, no, I just want installs, right? So I want an install-based algorithm. No, I mean, most of our companies actually go for ROAS algorithms. We actually look on return on ad spend. We look at the purchase revenue, sometimes ad revenue. We look at all these things, and we focus on these, right? But the reality, again, going back to which networks do you pick, is not, I'm going to pick the same algorithm every single time. No. What you're actually doing is defining a business goal, and based on that, that decision of the business goal, you're deciding which algorithm you want to pick, which then decides the signals that you need and defines the data that you want to send. Which means if we flip the script and we think first, what's my business goal? Then you pick the algorithm. Then that algorithm tells you which signals does it need. This part, I'm saying it very easily, but it takes, weeks and months of testing and practice to kind of figure out what are the actual signals. And then based on those signals, you know which content you need, and based on that, you decide which team and skill sets do you need. So this is the framework. This is like the sauce that I'm trying to share with you guys. Your goal defines your algorithm, which defines your team. So, I'm missing a word here. I'm going to go through the previous slide was the cookbook. So I'm going to share multiple recipes here. So as just examples of this thought process going along. So I really want you guys to not just think, oh, he's here just for the theory. No, this is the actual part where you can, think practically with examples. And there's countless examples. There's tens of examples of this. Let's say, as your business objective, you're a game that maybe has low in-app purchases, which means your LTV is not super high, but you actually convert really well to those low amounts of purchases. Let's say it's a game at the infancy and it hasn't optimized the purchases super well, but it does have purchases, does have an LTV. Let's say, I don't know, $5, $8 LTV, something, along those lines, right? And then you think to yourself, I want those cheap purchasers. That's my business objective. So in my experience, and there might be different experiences out there, for instance, TikTok is a good example of this. There's countless other networks. I think the social ones are good for this kind of algorithm, which is the purchase event optimized algorithm. It's an algorithm that's learning on the amount of purchases that you're feeding into it. So note what I said, amount. There's also value of purchases. It's completely different. So based on that purchase event, the algorithm actually, what it trains on is the video content. So you went from wanting cheap purchases to now thinking about the structure of the video. And when you think about the structure of the video, I've analyzed that, for instance, on TikTok, it's very important to have influencers in the video. I'm not sure exactly how they learn this, how they see this, but if you don't have UGC, if you don't have actual influencers in the video, it just will not perform as well. Might be them also trying to promote the influencers and the content makers within the platform. It actually makes sense if you think about their business objectives. And so you went from needing cheap purchases to now you're talking to influencers every day, and you need to send them every day. That algorithm in particular really wants content. It wants a lot of content really fast and furious. Really think, how would TikTok feel about this? They're like, oh, we want our advertisers and our users to be constantly feeding new content from creators, right? So what do you need to get so much UGC content? Sure, you can partner up with an ad agency, you can partner up with TikTok. That's actually what we did as an approach. But theoretically, what you could need is community managers that are talking with all these influencers and getting those videos done constantly. So now let's summarize this particular recipe. You went from wanting cheap purchasers, and you're hiring community managers. It's not obvious at the first sight, but when you see all the building blocks, it actually starts to make some sense. So here's more examples. So for instance, you want to fire up your DSP because you want highly retaining users. You want the highest quality users that you can possibly find. There are DSPs out there that really will provide this data. But DSPs are these very complex algorithms, a bunch of them with, very complex machine learning algorithms that have so many data points. So what you're actually doing is like just feeding coals to the engine. You're just like giving as much data as humanly possible. So remember in the past when I was saying there's so many different places where the data might break, right? Don't do that. So the point is you're trying to get as many session and revenue events from the first 3 days, because it could be day 0, it could be day 3, it could be day 7, depends on the attribution window, but it's the first few days. So think about it. Some developers like to think, oh, I'm not going to serve ads at the very start because it's a bad user experience. But first of all, users are more used to ads now than they were ever. Two, if you serve some ads at the beginning, you're sending so many signals to the ad network, revenue signals from the ads. And you're actually feeding the algorithm with data, precious data that it's keeping and fueling, and they're going to reward you back with more impressions, with cheaper installs, with better installs, with higher quality installs, because you're feeding the algorithm, right? The right way. So you're optimizing those sessions at the very start. So what do you need? You actually need product marketing people that actually will work with product and will try to implement as many of these signals as humanly possible, working with the data scientists as well to make sure that those are the right signals, and that's what they actually need. And then if you're thinking, for instance, let's say you're hyper casual, you are mostly ad monetized, and you just want as many cheap installs as possible, you actually want broad target CPM campaigns. And what happens there is that a lot of companies, what they do is they focus in-house on creating like automations to send specific bids, specific CPMs for these networks. What they're trying to do is like build a data pipeline from the LTV data within the app, real time, feed it back to the network, so they always keep bidding at the exact levels that they need as fast as humanly possible to get as many installs as humanly possible. This is one of the reasons why you see hyper-casual games suddenly burst out of nowhere and then die off out of nowhere. These algorithms are really fast, in-house even. So what you need on this case is data engineers to build those systems, to build those pipelines, and then you need UA managers with the business expertise to understand why are you sending these specific bids or not. So, in conclusion, I have more examples of these cookbooks, and you can always talk, but let's just try to summarize this way of thinking. So, it's not just you hire a few UA managers, you hire a few marketing artists, and call it a day. There's more to it. You have to adjust the skills to the algorithm that you're advertising on. And look, you don't need every network to succeed. So when I showed multiple different cookbooks, you notice that they're very different skill sets, right? So you could adjust, you could do it two ways. You either hire for specific networks because you want to scale on specific networks, or you see the skills that you have in-house and you adjust which networks you have to the skills that you actually have in-house. Not inherently just, let's spend on Google or Facebook and call it a day. That's not exactly how it actually works. And then remember, the product that you guys are making, the game that you're making, the signals that it's sending is defining your capability of doing these things. So it's very important to connect the product with these algorithms. And then based on all of this, you know which teams to build, you know what skill sets you need, and you go around. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. I think we've got time for questions, if anyone wants to ask one. Any burning questions?
Since I have a bit of extra time, I can also go over, I have some extra content. Just in case.
Yeah, we do have a couple extra minutes, so yeah, please do. If you
People are hungry and want their lunches. So, one thing about all this is how will it change, right? I'm giving this talk right now, 2023, not end of the year yet, but getting there. And things are changing as we speak. I don't believe that the same cookbook recipes will work, let's say, a year from now. They won't. Like, the algorithms keep on changing. There's changing, actually this slide is now outdated because the Google bidder is actually not updating in Halloween. But there have been the changes with Apple. There are changes coming in possibly with Apple, definitely with Android Privacy Sandbox. And all of these algorithms are about to change again. So one of the reasons why you want your UA managers in-house is definitely to keep updated, keep understanding these recipes, keep studying all of this, also your data scientists probably, and figure out what is the next recipe that's going to happen and how to capitalize on it and how to get it done. So, yeah, just wanted to also keep in mind that nothing I say here will last, and that's why I wanted to talk about the mentality about it, because it's never going to stop being relevant. I very vehemently opposed to the view of UA manager dying, like the craft dying. I really believe that that's a talk that's been happening for the last 10 years, and it's going to keep on happening, and there's a reason we're still around and more needed than ever. Anyway, thank you so much. Do you now have questions?
Any future-gazing questions? That's the... All right.
They want
I'll leave everyone alone. But thank you so
Cheers.
much here. A quick round of applause. Thank you.